So I recently made that product animation, and while I was making it, I posted on Instagram some behind the scenes, and I got so many questions asking, how did I do the screen? How did I make the sliders to be able to animate the screen? So in this video, I'm going to show you a few different ways how you can use attributes in your next project. So let's hop into Blender and check it out. So this is the kind of final setup, and so this is just an iPhone model that I created, but the main thing today is going to be this screen. And what's special about it is that under here we have a bunch of properties, and basically can do like this. So we have sort of a slider that animates the screen on and off, and it has this kind of gradient up, and same for the background, it's just a different gradient separately. And then I can adjust the brightness of, take away the clock, and then I had this charger screen that I can determine how much it charged procedurally. And then there's just a number here that tells me where the offset for the video files. That's a video file that for the clock, and it will at frame something, I don't know, let's put this to 0. And it should unlock right at the end. Nope, it does not. Oh, there it is. So that's just a screen recording I took on my iPhone. So that this is just an offset number, so I can tell it where it should be. So -100, that's what I had. And then the background is just animated like procedural texture. And one more thing that's kind of that I like to do with product visualization is when there are different colors of products of the same product, I usually have this color selector, which allows me to just select between the different color options. So I could change it on the fly, or even animate the change to have the different colors. We're gonna keep it orange. So what is going on here? Well, this is the shader for the screen, and it is a behemoth of a shader, and don't worry, we're not gonna go this complicated today, but to just explain, this section here is just the animated looping background. So if I just preview that, it is, or not looping, animated gradient background. It's just this effect. Because I wanted like a live wallpaper kind of thing, but you could just replace this with an image or a video or whatever. And then we have the video for the screen. This is just a screen recording of my phone with a black background and just the lock screen. And when it unlocks, it goes into just a black screen. So then it disappears. And this is just a second version of it because I needed to for the animation, but that's not important. It's the same video, just offset it differently. And then there is this switcher that I can use, which is in here, this switch screen, and it switches between these two. And then there are different attributes that are just taken in here. So if I were to show you this clock attribute, it is just purely this value, and it is used in this to add the clock on top. And same goes for the charger screen, and it just blends in the charger screen, so I can actually have like both of them. Or then it does it the second time for the does it a second time for the green parts, and it does it once for the background ring, and once for the charger part. And then this value drives this greater than, less than value here, this less than. So there's this radial gradient that it just finds what's less than, like this, and this float curve makes this sort of rounded end. If I wouldn't have that, it would just be a straight line, which isn't accurate to the iPhone's MagSafe charging screen. So I tried to replicate it as close as possible. And then it combines it with just the other end, so it's not a straight edge on the other end either. Multiplies this gradient with this circle that is also a procedural circle. So I could change the scale of that, and it would change all of the scales, so that we just get this part, and that's used as a mask together with this to drive the green color. And it also adds in this lightning bolt PNG that I found online, so it becomes this kind of mask, which is then multiplied by the charger screen value. So the charger screen value, and then makes it green. And then there's an overall screen brightness, which goes into this multiply, that goes into the emission. And what's the other part in the multiply is this Voronoi texture, which is kind of trying to emulate what, like, the pixels. So it has kind of this pixelated effect. Not pixelated, but it just has these black lines, which just creates this kind of screen effect. It's very primitive, but works, gets the job done. So that's the setup. And now let's build a little bit simpler version of this. So let's go into that. So now we have the phone. I removed the material of the frame and the screen. I left these other parts because I'm not gonna cover how I made each individual one, because they will use the same principle and will actually transfer over once we get to that point. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go into the object properties, and down here at the bottom you will have this custom properties tab. In custom properties, it was something that I for a long time didn't know what to do with. What is it for? What do you use it for? Then at some point I figured maybe I could use them as drivers, because I noticed that they show up in the end panel. And for some reason I never learned about this on any tutorial anywhere. So this is perfect, because now you get to learn. So if I create a new property, it will create this property named prop, and its default values is always this. And we're just gonna change some settings. So we're gonna call this color and set it as an integer. Default value is 1, minimum 1, and maximum 3, because we have 3 different colors. And you could put a description saying changes iPhone color if you want. And library overridable means that if you were to link this into a different file, if you override the object so that you can animate it, these attributes get exposed, so you can change them and animate them. Allow the property to be overridden when the data block is linked, as it says. Press OK. There we go. And now I can also already demo because these are set up. If I press here, it changes the color. But we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Then let's do one for screen brightness. Screen brightness. And we'll keep it as a float, and we'll put the subtype as factor. Library overridable. Default value to 1. There we go. And we will do one more for, that's called background. And the same situation, factor, library overridable. Okay. Now we have a background and a screen brightness and a color. Let's set up the color first because that is very simple. We go into the shader tab, and this is gonna be in slot 1. This has a bunch of materials, this object. We're just gonna make a new object and call it frame. And now immediately I know that there's gonna be 3 colors. So we're gonna do a mix color, 2 of them, and just connect them up like this. Put this to 0, so we have the first one be sort of a whitish, and this is going to be a metallic material like this. We're already getting pretty close, and 0.4 maybe. And I'm not gonna put too much time on these materials now. That's for you to do once, if you're gonna do this same kind of thing. So that's good enough for me now. And then we go to the next one, which we want to be orange, and it's kind of a bright orange like this. 0.98 saturation like that. Sure. And then the last one is gonna be this dark blue color, something like that. Quick and easy, simple. So how do we control these with this attribute? Now, some of you may think that, oh, you can just copy this as a driver. And yes, you can, but that will create an issue. Let me show you. If I take this as copy as new driver and put in a value and paste this driver, and I do a less greater than 0.999 and put it in here. No, 1.999. Now it works. It changes the color for that, and if I were to put one to be 2.99, this I could get the 5. And this is the basic idea here. But the problem is, if I now were to duplicate this, let's do a linked copy like this. If I change this value, it changes both of them, but this one's value won't change the frame because we set it up like this. And that is the main issue. I would have to duplicate the material on this second copy, which I don't want to do, because if I want to have them all, I want to just have linked copies, so it's more efficient to render and to work with. Somehow I need to isolate this this attribute per object, and to do this, if I set that one to 2 and that one to 1, you will see it immediately happen. So let's just zoom in here. So I can take an attribute node, and And the attribute node will search for attributes by name, and it is case sensitive, so we're gonna check for color. And it is not a geometry attribute, it's an object attribute because it's in the object properties. If we would go into, I think if you go into data, it would be in geometry. I'm not 100% sure. But now, if I take this value and plug it in here, boom. Now we have individual control of these two phones. So I can have them be the same color or a different color. And that is the whole idea. So now we're already set up one of the two effects here. And if I put now this same material to the camera, you will see that it is the wrong color. It is not changing with the phone. First of all, you need to create the same attribute for the camera object as the phone, or you could join this with have a single object to drive everything. But in this case, this is a separate object. And it now has this attribute, so I could manually change it, but that's kind of tedious to go into both objects. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna copy this as a new driver and just paste it over here. Paste driver. And now it changes together with the phone. Perfect. So now let's tackle the screen. So let's find the screen material here and we'll do screen. So the screen material is gonna be an emission shader. And what did we do? We did screen brightness and background. So we're gonna get those two. So easy way to get screen brightness is to just do the attribute node again, that object, and call it screen brightness. Use a shorter name so that it's easier to see that it's correct. So now I have this value that can drive the screen. And if we put this into the strength, now we can turn on the screen and turn off the screen. If we want to make that kind of gradient that we had in the original one, we can, for instance, go ahead and take a texture coordinate node and take the object coordinates and put it into a vector math set to length. What this does is it creates this gradient from 0, 0, and then it just says how far away from this point is this. And I want this gradient to start from this corner. So I'm gonna take a mapping node and I'm just gonna eyeball this. So we're gonna move it in the y-axis, no, in the z-axis. No, in the y-axis is correct. To about there. And then in the x-axis to over here in the corner. And then we're gonna take a map range. We're gonna start by inverting this. And then we want to lower this value until we find the edge of the screen. So something like that seems correct. And now we can take a math node and multiply these two. And that is not exactly what we want. What we actually want to do is take and make this an add and clamp that. So now it looks like this, and we can take a map range on this one from 0 to 1 and make it 1, no, -1 to 1. And we can unclamp that. So now it grows like that from the corner. And as I'm looking at it, I want to actually scale this on the x-axis bit 0.3, no, 0.25, so that it's more like that. So that is now the screen brightness. And let's add that video file. So input, no, texture, image texture, and we select the unlock screen. And I don't remember how many frames it is, but it's like that. So if I just put this in here, you will now have a black screen with this texture, and I can animate it on with this slider. Amazing. Now we need some background. So for that, we're gonna take another image texture and we have this image here that we're gonna use. So we need to first combine these somehow. So we're gonna take a math, a mix color. There we go. Mix color node like this. And we're gonna put let's do it this way. So we're gonna add this on top of the background, and we're gonna add it 2 times so that it's a bit brighter there. And then we need to modify this. So we're gonna put a mix. And could also be fine and set this completely to black and this to 1. So now we have this slider here that turns on the background. And what we're gonna do immediately is just copy this setup and put this into there. And just to adjust the gradient, we're just gonna move it on the x-axis to the other corner, like so. Maybe scale it a bit less down. And then we change this attribute to background. So now we have this kind of gradient that drives the screen on and off. So now I can turn on the screen like so, and I can turn on the background like so. And then if I do a screen down, everything goes down at the same time. Like that. And then of course we can change the color of the phone. And that is basically how these are made. And you can make almost anything using this. You can drive geometry node setups with this. You can drive shaders with this, you can drive constraints, modifiers. It's very versatile. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found this useful. And if you liked it, please leave a like and consider subscribing. This video is proof that I read your comments and I make what you want to see. So if you have any ideas, leave them down below and I'll see you next time.